Hi, Uncle Thor here. Tonight I want to discuss something that I should have made a video of this a long time ago. It's an old talk I used to give. I've been giving it now for, wow, well over 30 years. And it's something that has proven itself time again to me. I've observed it time and again. It's a very powerful idea because it is the power of an idea. And it's just this wonderful thought that sometimes you get that idea that comes to you that you can take and make, and it transforms things for you. And all it takes is one idea, but to work on that idea, to apply it, to study and practice it, to make it practical. That's the important thing, and that's where many people don't get to implement the idea. For some people, they get the idea and they have it for a while and says, let's work on this, this is great. But after a week or two, they says, I don't have to work on it so hard. Maybe I'll go over to the bar for a while. Maybe I'll watch TV. And in time, the idea goes on to a back burner because they're too busy idling with things that just waste time. And some people get it and say, I have a great thing, and they can't wait to tell their friends. And as I said many times before, you get an enterprise going, the idlers show up, and they can sap your enthusiasm. They can sap that, that emotional drive, that desire to make it work. Of course, you got a bunch of naysayers that are going to tell you you're doing it wrong. They don't even know what you're doing, but they'll tell you you're doing it wrong. You don't want these people around. And some people just let it lay there and don't really worry about it, and eventually maybe someone else picks up on it. But the people who really know what they're doing, they take this idea, they see that it has potential, and they nurture it. Now, it may take time before they start getting results. It could take 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, maybe longer. But if they work at it, this idea can bear something really good. Thomas Edison had an idea. He had an idea of an incandescent light bulb. And he actually had the idea work. Using a horsehair for a filament, he knew that passing electricity through it would cause light, but a horsehair burns out in a few seconds. He took over 2,000 materials, wire and other things, to find a filament that did not burn out. He made that idea work, and he had his proof. The horsehair was the proof. George Washington Carver had an idea. He had an idea that he could find practical uses for the peanut and for the sweet potato and help the Southern economy and also Southern farming, because he knew that if they rotated cotton with peanuts and sweet potato, they wouldn't deplete the soil. But now they said, well, what are we going to do with all the peanuts and sweet potatoes? Not much demand. And he understood, and the idea he had was to use heat and pressure. And he applied heat and pressure to the peanut, and he developed 300 uses for the peanut. Working on the sweet potato, 150 uses there. And this was all from the power of a single idea. Now, all right, these are great scientists, you say, they're up there. What about you and me? But it can work for you and me too. That one idea that transforms your life or brings you a step further. These ideas are not a one-shot, everything's final, and all of a sudden glory days. Sometimes you get an idea that moves you along just a little bit. Maybe it pulls you out of a rut. And I was giving this talk to a rehab one time, drug and alcohol rehab. And I can't mention names. I fictionalize usually. When I write the story, I'll use a fictitious name. But here I won't even use a name. And it was a young man who was getting in. It was a 30-day residential program for these people. And about a week and a half, he was going to be getting out, and he was worried. He was worried because he no longer had a job. He could only stay at a relative's house for maybe a couple weeks. How was he going to make enough money to survive and maybe get out of the rut? What was he going to do? Now, the problem he didn't have a job was part of the reason he ended up in a rehab. He had been a youth counselor. He had certified. He had been, I believe, licensed too. And because of his addiction, he lost that. So I was giving the lecture, and he listened very intently at some point. He really paid attention to me. And usually with people in addicts and alcoholics, they're a mixed bag. Some will pay attention. Most are drifting somewhere here or elsewhere. But this guy was really intent on everything I said. So afterwards he came and he talked to me and he told me his problem. And he said he had an idea that might get him through. When he had been a youth counselor, one of the things they like to teach the kids, a project, was silk screening. And this guy knew how to make silk screens and knew how to silk screen t-shirts. And he's thinking, well, why don't we put recovery slogans on t-shirts? Why doesn't he do it? And he could sell them at meetings and makes just enough money maybe until he can get a real job. So I told him it might work, you don't want to spend too much. But he was convinced that this idea was going to work for him. And I didn't see him again. The next time I came to lecture, he had already finished his time there. Well, I heard about him a couple of times, that going to meetings selling his t-shirts. But as it turned out, it actually worked out good for him because it gave him money to get a small place for himself, to feed himself, to keep himself at least in good shape until he could get a real job, until he could find a job he liked well enough. And remember, he didn't have a lot of prospects for anything because he had lost his certification. And that degree he got from college, well, that was on shaky ground because of it. But through this one idea, he was able to get through his early months of recovery in passable financial shape. So that's my one success story that I have. But I've had many an idea come and I've implemented them too. And you get different results. Some ideas only have short-term or maybe a small effect. Some have a larger one. But the most important thing is that when you have that idea, you look at it reasonably, you work at it. You don't have to let it take over your whole life, but you do have to work at it and work to implement it, and don't let anything get in the way. Don't get bored. Don't get sidetracked. And most important, when you get the idea, keep your mouth shut about it. You don't want the idiots coming around, oh, let's see what he's got. Let's all get involved, because they're going to upset the apple cart. The reason they didn't get the idea is they wouldn't know what to do with it, because most of them are idlers or goof-ups. You want to take that idea and run with it. And guaranteed, if you do, you will appreciate the results. I've given this talk for over 30 years, and believe me, the facts, the evidence, the proof is there. So I hope you get your idea and know what to do with it and make something good come true. This is Uncle Thor. Have a good one. Time to sign out.